Okay, BTC Barbers profile cut number 3, asymmetric. You can be graduating, deep point cutting, using thinning scissors and channel cutting, and different sectioning for this particular cut. Okay, so this section we start with has a curved aspect that travels around the back of the crown towards the back part of the ear on the right hand side of the head. Take your first guide. You're using your guide to create the desired length. So the question really is, why do you establish a guideline? You establish a guideline to ensure that you have the chosen length created to follow, as you guys now know, using a point cutting technique or a club cutting technique, so you can decide. Pull the hair out at a 90-degree angle, but drop your fingers down to just above a 45-degree angle. This will encourage the haircut to have a form of graduation, not too steep, but certainly will maintain a little bit of length around the ear. Check the length is correct before you carry on with your guide. If you are happy, take part of this guide that you've just created and follow that in a methodical manner all the way around to the back of the head, keeping your sections super clean and tidy, combing it out of the way, and make sure that the hair is damp throughout, which will make it a lot easier for you to ensure that you get an accurate cut. 90-degree, pull out. Alter your fingers slightly to ensure that it is a graduated effect, not too tight, so just above a 45-degree. And then continue to take your sections, working back towards the back part of the head. At this stage, just be careful that the beard is out of the way. Again, take your section, add that graduation, and then start to continue that process towards the back part of the crown. Inch-size sections, nice and clean and tidy. Good tension, good control as always. Nice methodical pattern will make life a lot easier for you. Find your guide. Pull out. Check your angles. Continue to cut. As you start to pull down towards the back of the head, you will need to connect. So just move your fingers down a little bit further, and away you go. Okay, now at this stage, re-establish. Nice clean sections. Comb your excess away. Comb goes straight in, collects the hair. Pull out, find your guide, and connect. 90, there's my guide, cut. Then start to work back down towards the nape area or the baseline or perimeter line. This way you can start to connect your haircuts. So 1, 2, possibly even 3, depending on the size of your fingers. But we're going to start to move down now towards the nape area, the neck area. Pull out, find my guide, create, and work down towards the nape of the head. You'll find that your guide should be quite easy to see. If not, just move back slightly and that will be an easier method to find your guide. Okay, good. Work all the way down towards the nape area, and this will ensure that you will create a graduated effect through the back part of the head. Okay, just check, visually check it. At this stage now, as you're working through your profile cuts, you're looking more for a visual check. You can always check the balance because obviously that's good practice, but you should be able to see where there's uneven weight distribution just by looking at it. So keep your eye on the haircut as you're working through. 90, just a little bit kind of below, and then work your way down. Alright, systematically, so section by section, bit by bit, always establish your guide and work through the haircut correctly. Now at this stage, what we need to start thinking about is connecting that side and that back together. We're going to take a slight diagonal section, get a guide from the front part, pull out. The most important thing to recognize at this stage is to soften it. So we're using a little bit of point cutting. You need to make sure that when you're taking a diagonal section that your fingers are parallel to that section. So you can see as I put my comb, I'm checking that my fingers are literally parallel to that section. And we call that a parallel section on a diagonal. check, make sure that you're comfortable with it, look for anything that you don't think should be there and start to reconnect. Again, at this stage, probably better off using a point cutting just to soften it through. Alright, so now you're using a slight diagonal section to connect the sides and the back together. Works quite well just to remove excess weight. Drop it down slightly, pull out. You can extend your fingers out slightly at the neckline to maintain the length. It's going to be kind of down to you and your customer to kind of negotiate. But for this particular cut, we are looking at extending the fingers out slightly when you get to the perimeter or the baseline, and this will enable us to keep that little bit of length. We can take that off after, so no problem. Okay, back up to the top, pivoting around your guide and your section. Keep checking it and work your way down bit by bit. Re-establish your fingers. Good control, good tension as always. And then you can start to then graduate down into the back of the neck. So in a sense, you're kind of using two angles here. You're pulling the hair out at a 90, but you're positioning your fingers at around about a 45 degree. That can be quite flexible depending on you and your customer's kind of consultation and their requirements. So just don't forget that every angle can be manipulated and changed just to ensure that you get the right result for your customer. Nice, good tension. At this stage I'm just using more of a club cutting technique to keep it nice and clean. Always good club cutting on finer hair, as you now know anyway. Okay, just pulling my fingers out slightly as I'm heading down towards the bottom baseline, just to make sure I keep that length. Check it. You can see the last bit that needs to come off. Check my guide. Brilliant. You can start to see the weight distribution is changing now into a graduational effect. That's going to complement the natural curvatures of the back of the head. Graduation is very good to give it that kind of curved effect around through the back bottom part of the crown. Always just be careful to keep your eyes on things like occipital bones. That can alter the way you might cut the customer's hair. So now we're just going to continue that process through. Pivoting really all the way down to the back of the kind of right hand side here. Nice size sections, always using about 1 inch. Okay, cool. Check my angle. Nice graduation. And we're good to go. At this stage, you would be looking for things like hair growth patterns, just on how that might influence the way you finish the haircut. If the gentleman had some form of nape whirl, you may wish to keep a bit more weight or length just to kind of hide that. Or you even might decide to take it in really short just to kind of get rid of that. Alright, good. Make sure you're stood directly in front of your section when you're cutting it. It's going to just help get a better result. Watch your posture. Not overstretching or over directing then. It's going to end up with a much cleaner haircut. And eventually we're going all the way to the back part of the right hand side ear. That's good. I try to encourage most of you now to kind of twist your comb around a little bit. So at this stage I'm taking that section and combing it with the small tooth part of my comb. That's just going to create better tension. But then the bigger side of my comb is used for creating the first section. So kind of twist your comb around a little bit, get used to that. So, alright, visually checking it, comb and check for balance, pull bits out obviously. And then at some stage we're going to need to deal with the actual baseline or perimeter line or neck edge. We're going to use a freehand point cutting technique at this stage. Rest the scissors on the head, so there's no tension involved as such, and you're just going to clean up. This is quite a soft kind of effect on the neckline. You and your customer may decide to go for more of a square or a rounded, but just to kind of soften that, check the length. Right, stationary scissor over comb, just to kind of clean up slightly. Adding a small amount of kind of tapering to that graduation. It's going to taper it down into the neckline slightly by using this technique. So scissor over comb is a technique that we're going to start to develop over the next couple of weeks. In this case really it's more of a checking aspect rather than a design aspect. Okay, so now what we need to do is connect the back to the sides by taking a section that runs literally just underneath the horseshoe or the perimeter rounded aspect of the head. And then we're going to start to connect. Just checking for a guide at the back part of the ear at the moment, just to make sure that we're good to go. So just going to pull out, same principle, 90 angle, 45, thereabouts. And work down towards the nape of the neck, just checking again. And at this stage then, we've got something to aim towards to start to connect into the sides. This is going to be a little bit more trickier as we head into this area, because there's an element of over direction that's going to be required, and that's just to make sure that the front part on the right hand side is left longer. So we're just going to cross check it again, using more of a diagonal section, making sure that my fingers are parallel to this section at all times. It's going to keep it nice and clean, and then we're going to just work through to the front part. Slight aspect of over direction involved, so we're going to gather the hair, make sure the beard's out of the way, drag it back slightly, and maintain that over directional feel to it. Okay, so now we're going to just separate the top and the back, so across the crown on the curvature. So push the excess forward and get rid of that. And again, same sort of principle really, 90 degrees, just checking for any lost weight distribution, pivoting around the back of the head. So 90, slight 45, head around, pivot, section by section. Change this slightly now to a point cutting, just to soften it through slightly. Gives that a little bit more texture and flexibility around the crown area. Your choice though, club cut or point cut. You can just start to see that lovely graduation shape, complementing the back shape part of the head. So really nice. Just check visually, bounce it about. Good, quite happy. Horizontally check, just run your comb through it. Oh look, there's a little bit of excess, get rid of that. Okay, cool. Now we're going to start to sort of like blend in those side parts that we've already cut into the top part. It's going to get a little bit more trickier because we're going to use a slightly different section line. Horizontal at this stage, so we're just going to pull out, find my guideline from what I previously cut underneath. So drag it over, only use sort of like the amount of hair you can fit into your fingers. Key point of this as well is to over direct the front, so my fingers are going to be at a slight angle, elevating out at the front hairline, maintain maximum length. Point cut then through this area, nice and soft. This will get a connection point towards the sides and the top. We can work with that then through over direction. But very important to over direct the fingers. As you can see at the very front of the haircut, it's important to keep that length. Straight out, parallel, horizontal, making sure that we just get rid of that excess weight. You're connecting really the sides to the top at this point. So just check for balance. Yeah, it's all good. Alright, so you're happy. Take another section then. So nice and clean, this time kind of on the top recessed part of the head where the head starts to curve. So now what we can do is drag that down, look for a connection point, pick up on what we've just previously cut. Alright, it'll give you a bit of a guideline to look at. Pull down, parallel, over direct the front, so elevate the fingers out small at the front section, you can hopefully see that. Point cut to soften, gets connection, and then just work through all the way to the back part of the crown. This part you don't need to worry about keeping any areas longer or shorter. It's just parallel straight out. There we go, connect to the back of the crown. You see your guideline on the right hand side by the fingertips. Absolutely fine then. We know we're good to go. Take another one. Inside sections or thereabouts, no bigger. Slightly less if you want to, it's not a problem. Okay, connect. Alright, so you're kind of pulling out to the middle part, I guess, of that side part of the section. Bring my fingers right out so the front stays longer. There's an angle to that. And then point, cut and soften. Reconnect. I reckon really most people will kind of achieve this blending in and connection of the top and the sides with three kind of sections. So I've done one at the front, one in the middle, one towards the crown. So it's kind of like be prepared to kind of put in 3 aspects. Now then at some stage you're going to realise that actually no more hair will connect into those side sections. That over direction process is finished and we can move on to the top. But you'll find that that little bit at the front will need just checking. Alright. Using my little fingers just to act as a rest really when you're cutting through the top part of the head. When you're using your point cutting technique, just steadies your hand a little bit. It's just kind of good practice really. Again, visually checking, all haircuts become very much just a visual checking process. So now what we're going to do is go straight onto the top of the head. Gets a little bit more tricky again now, so watch. What we're trying to do is connect on the left hand side, because we know we've just cut that. Angling my fingers up slightly to maintain the length. So hopefully you'll see that at this point. So comb up. Alright, drag your fingers across slightly. There you go, you're almost looking at a slight angle there, just to maintain the length on the right hand side. So you're kind of connecting really through the top, from one side to the other. Over directing again at this point, dragging back, probably a good 2 inches. Elevate my fingers up. There we go. So that maintains the length on the right hand side at all times. I'm just going to get a connection now, so literally all the way to the front, right, over direct it. Watch how I pull my fingertips up to maintain the length, so watch carefully, up, up, up. Alright, so nice and high if you can. Alright, and you're looking at connection points. And again, literally drag the whole section of that front fringe all the way across and back, and tilt those fingers up higher, keeping maximum length. Point cut. I mean, you could slice cut at this stage if you wanted to, but for maximum softness, slice cut, point cut, it's all going to be good for you. Just get rid of that kind of bluntness of feel of it. So over direction to that kind of area where I position the comb, and elevating the comb up, which will be in your fingers, to maintain that maximum length through the front. Good. Okay, now at this stage we need to dry it. Choose your brush. You can either use a vent brush or a Denman brush. Power dry it, full speed, medium heat as always. Push the kind of hair around really. Use the hairdryer to chase the brush. Lift the hair up just to get some kind of volume. Remembering just to kind of push it back in quite tight when you get to the neckline. Keep it nice and flat. You want it flat around the bottom and then higher through the top. So either or, have a brush you kind of like really. That's it. The dryer is kind of directing the hair into the position I want it to go. So really the dryer and the brush is working together. Alright, so nice and power dry, flat through the bottom. Push that brush into the neckline, keep it nice and flat. Okay, then lift it through the back of the crown just to make sure you get that extra volume through it. So you can use that brush to kind of pick the hair up, dryer to complement that volume and texture really. So just keep blasting it around. Again, this is a great opportunity when you're drying a haircut, is to kind of check the cut. Every time you dry a haircut, really you should be checking, looking, visually looking, checking for balance, making sure there's no missed areas, any lengths that you may have missed through your sectioning. So it's a great opportunity just to really clarify you're happy with the cut. Every barber will do that. So literally push it through. A nice kind of dry, nice and smooth really. So the dry is not kind of being shaken around too much, otherwise it will ruffle it and make it a little bit more fluffier. So yeah, change the brush. Alright, so complement it, push it in the direction. You're looking to personalise this haircut in a minute. So whilst you're drying it, you are looking at what you can do to personalise it. And if this was a customer, you could be talking to them saying, how do you feel about the fringe? That's good length. Do you want to go short at the back? So you kind of fact finding as you're drying, checking, making sure your customer's happy with it really. So ideally it's open communication at this stage. Make sure your customer is really kind of pleased with the finished length, because once you've dried it, you're looking at personalization, going through, tweaking it, changing it, making it look better. So yeah, lots of lift on the crown, brush involved with that, lots of power drying into the roots. That's going to create the volume really. So blast it in, a little bit of volume through the front. Alright, and lots of power drying, using your hands really, directing it to where you want it to go. Always thinking of what you need to change and develop. Now you're kind of at that stage where you need to start to identify your personalization. So I can see there's weight distribution through the crown. When I pick up, you'll see it's slightly uneven. So let's have a look. So close the scissors, lift the hair up, place the comb under. You can see shortest point is the shortest point. You can see what's in the middle. There's a little bit of excess weight. So I'm going to deep point cut that out, soften it through. Alright. Stationary really. I'm not going to be moving the comb up too much. Just going to literally look at it, check it. I can see a bit more weight through there. So again, pick it up. You can soon sort of identify it. Shortest point. Oh, that's quite a lot of coming off of there. Look. So this is a great opportunity for you just to kind of check it through really. So a deep point cut or a thinning scissor work at this stage would just blend it. Keep that kind of balance and control. So again, close the scissors, lift the hair up, place the comb in, establish what you want to be cutting, and soften it through with a deep point cut. Alright, all visual really. You know, personalization. You find that some people will have thicker areas of their hair around different aspects of the head. So as you become more and more confident with your barbering skills, you're going to just start to personalize it and look at it rather than worry about too many sections and angles. Good shape to the back of the head, quite happy with that. So a little bit more weight through the front. So again, just be a little bit careful here not to overdo it, but we'll soon see what you need to take off. Cool. A little bit of weight through there as you can see. So up we go. Point cut through, soften. Cool. Alright. Often on an asymmetrical haircut, this right hand side can have excess weight sometimes, so again through that area you just pick it up. You've got to be just a little bit careful as you're working towards the front, which you'll see in a minute, to make sure that we keep an over directional feel to it, but excess weight all through that area. So now what we want to do as we're working through this particular area is elevate the comb out slightly to maintain that. So pull it out, 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 out. That way you're going to maintain maximum length in the front. Point cut through there, but that is really quite important to make sure that that comb does come out. You've over directed the haircut. You would not want to go back in there and just take out all that work. So make sure that you bring the comb out, gives it maximum length through that front area. So watch again, over direct it, point cut through, nice and soft. Okay, so at this stage, repeat that process until you're happy really. Visually cross check, soften, move around. All that personalization. You could add a bit of twist cutting. We need some thinning scissor work just to debulk really, same principle, but in that right hand area it can often be a little bit heavier. So just simple close, open and close technique. Alright, so just gather your section. Using the thinning scissors just to debulk. So again, a little bit in through that area. Lift them up, stationary. Pop a bit of weight out. Alright, thinning scissors are really good tool to use for just adding texture if you want, but softness again is a key word for thinning scissors. Just be a little bit careful not to get too heavy handed. Be careful as well not to pull because they will be uncomfortable on the customer's head. So just kind of gently work them through. Alright, we're going to switch things up a little bit in a second. We're going to do a little bit of channel cutting through the front. So switch tools, go back to your scissors. Channel cutting is part of that slide cutting family really, but this time we actually are going to cut rather than just slide it. So open your scissors, find out areas you want to just debulk, add a bit of channel. So usually around that front area at this moment. So coming on in, Watch your stance. I'm going to go around the back, I think. Yeah. So you actually are cutting rather than just sliding. So it's that same kind of technique. Almost achieves the same kind of thing. But at the same time, you've got a bit more control this way. So I'm just going to literally place it in. Gently cut through. It's all detail work. Personalization, really. So it's almost like a bit of slide and cut. You can see slide through the ends. Debulking, texturizing, adding separation. All those buzzwords come into play. Just be careful not to damage the customer's scalp as you're dragging a comb through and your scissors through, but should be fine. Cool. Got that over directing sweeping fringe. Okay, it's a little bit of slide cutting, same principle. Alright, so now you've got that little bit more control through that area. So again, just visually checking. Pick up a little bit of excess weight through that area so we can just continue with our slice cutting motion. Just good, got developing different skills. You could go for a deep point cut, same sort of aspect really. But I mean, ultimately, it's just good to vary your skills. It's good for the customers to see your skills. So we're just going to literally deep point cut through that area. So really, deep point cut, slice cut, a bit of twist cutting, all those key cutting aspects could be put into play around this front aspect of the haircut. Alright, so we're just going to grab a bit of personalization around the crown, still a little bit too long, so just chop into that slightly. Let's add a bit more volume to it really. So a bit of slide cutting. All of this is visual though, you're just deciding what you want to do. You and your customer together, working as a team, you're going to identify what you want to change, get your customer involved, they'll guide you. Oh, can I have a bit more weight taken out of here? They're the ones that kind of guide you through it really. To choose a product, I mean, I'm going for a little bit of pomade. Wax could be really just as good. I mean, you could put a bit of dust on it. So any kind of product really could be suitable for this kind of haircut. So I'm just going to blast that through in a very kind of random manner really. So it's just really to create a bit of volume, a bit of texture. So again, often starting through the back part of the crown just to get that volume and lift through it, pushing it all forward. Transferring it really through your fingers into the roots. I mean, this haircut could be worn in many different ways. As you can see, just by putting some product through, you can make it really quite funky. Get a lot of lift to it, a lot of texture. Smooth it back out a little bit, a bit of blast drying, just personalising it a little bit. You could have more of a sweeping kind of fringe, a separated fringe. It could kind of be brushed back at the sides or brushed forward. It's going to be down to you and your customer to decide how you want this to look. It's just great skills, this haircut. It combines a lot of different things. You've got diagonal sections, got some horizontal work, some over direction. Asymmetrical haircuts are tipped to be quite popular this winter, so no doubt you might come across it a couple of times. Just checking for balance at this stage really. You can have a direct parting area or not really. Got a bit more volume through the front, maybe lift it off the head if you so wish. Bit of fixing spray. See the graduation through the back of the crown, nice and even. Tapering into the back of the neck really. So this is kind of just positioning, checking. Decent.